Welcome to the Fit Vegan Podcast, the show where we help you optimize your health, fitness, and mindset on a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. My name is Maxime. I am a former triathlete, powerlifter, bodybuilder, and basketball player, and I've been vegan for over 9 years. I'm also the founder and CEO of Fit Vegan Coaching, which has helped over 500 vegans from 20 different countries to completely transform their bodies and their health. I'm excited for you to hear today's episode. Let's get into the show. All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Fit Vegan Podcast. Today, we have a Fit Vegan superstar, Trina. Trina, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Coach Maxime.
Good. Very excited for us to chat. You've had, I think, an incredible transformation. You've inspired a lot of people. Your update photos were inspiring a lot of members. And so I'm happy that we get to chat about your journey, kind of how the whole process went and how you managed to have, in my opinion, a really big shift in body composition for the amount of weight difference. And, you know, I was pulling up your graph before we got started. And I think like your biggest fluctuation was maybe like 4 or 5 pounds, but from beginning to end, we're maybe looking at like a 1 pound difference. But your photos look like you lost like 10 plus pounds, like your stomach, how it tightened up, your back, your arms. There's a significant difference. And I think people are going to be shocked once they hear that it's only a pound difference. And then they look at your photo. I think it's going to blow them away.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's blown me away too.
Beautiful. Sorry. I think there's a bit of a delay. So I'll pause a little bit before I pass it off. So one thing I always like to start off with is, everyone always has an assumption that they don't have the time to take on exercising, to take on, you know, watching your nutrition, meal prepping, and doing things like that. And they have the assumption that when it's the perfect time to take this on and to prioritize themselves, then they'll do it. And so I would love for you to share like what you have and had on your plate when you took this on, because you didn't wait for the perfect moment to do this. Like you had other obligations and other things that, you know, you could have used as a reason as to like, well, I'm just going to wait later because it's not the time for me.
Sure. I think I'm not unique and probably can relate to everybody. We all have things going on and obligations, and yeah, there is no perfect time. I mean, I've got a family, I'm a wife, I'm a mother. I work outside of the home. And I have a full life. So absolutely. I mean, still have children in the home. I have a new grandson in the last year. And so I also make it a priority to go and visit family that are about 2 hours away once a week so that I can spend time and be present in their lives. I have another son who's in college that's in and out of the house frequently, and I, got to keep up with him. I have a daughter in high school that plays competition soccer, and so that's a lot of out-of-town travel. I work as a nurse case manager, so very busy days when I go to work. And I'm also quite involved with nurse advocacy with our union, and outside of all of those things as well. I've got a puppy, I've got dogs, I've got friends. So yeah, I have all the things that all of us have. But it was important. I definitely decided that I wanted to make a change. I had some goals in mind. And you're right, there's never a perfect time. But it was a conscious decision. It's a conscious decision that we all have to make to prioritize ourselves. And I recognized that I could continue to kind of go out there and aimlessly sort of search and follow different people or try different stuff. But I was really looking for that expertise, that guidance. And I kind of felt like I had tried quite a few different things. And I felt like it was possible, but I did feel like something was missing, that either I didn't have the knowledge and I wanted to be more targeted and focused with how I approach this. I've had some good success with that in the past, either having coaches or mentors. And I felt like I still had a concept back then. I have a different mindset now that I wanted it, but I kind of felt like there was something keeping me from that. It was like, what's the secret sauce? Like, is it just do I just not have the right genetics? Is it, I don't know that I want to eat that many salads. I mean, I was just there where I was like, you know what? I feel like there's something missing, and I want to, like I said, be more proactive and get the help that I needed. And I'm sure glad that I did. And I've achieved phenomenal results. And the great thing is that I feel like it's just the beginning. Like
Hmm.
I want to keep going. And I feel like that whole sort of like veil that I had, mystery veil of like, how do I do this, has been lifted, and it makes it very possible for anybody.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, it's interesting. You said like you don't want to go back to like eating salads and kind of doing the typical things that are promoted to lose weight. And it's interesting, like I know you haven't been vegan for forever, right? And you look at the non-vegan world, it's like chicken, rice, broccoli. If you eat that consistently and very boringly, and you do a lot of exercise, you'll lose the weight. But when you fall into veganism and plant-based nutrition, it hasn't been around long enough for people to necessarily know how to do it properly. So it's kind of like a mixture of both and a guessing game of like, let me just eat salad and trying to get away with that. And so I'm happy that we made you eat other things in salad as you were throughout the process.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, you must have been really busy in the nursing space. I actually just recorded another Fit Vegan success story with Julie in the program. She's a nurse as well, and she was saying how, and I'm wondering if that's your experience as well. When COVID was happening and everything was busy, she's like, people wanted to be nice and bring us food, and because we were working long hours, and they were bringing like donuts and pizza and cookies, and then it was just really hard to stay on track because you're just so busy, sleep deprived that you just grab whatever is there. Is that something you experienced as well over the past few years?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And for a lot of people that work those long hours, nurses, doctors, people working in healthcare, yeah, I mean, we are privy to seeing a lot of things, um, including a lot of break rooms with all sorts of stuff, right? And people just kind of, eating what they can, sort of on the run. On the other side, we see also the impact of diet, nutrition, and kind of just the impact that people's health has on not only them but their families and everybody else. So I think it really does hit home for a lot of us, and was a lot of the motivation as well to say, what can we do? Lead by example, and how can we set ourselves up so that we, are thriving as much as possible, and ideally, potentially, not having to be dependent on other people if there's things that we can do to prevent that. We understand when there's situations when you can't. But yes, I mean,
Yeah.
and the fabulous thing is that, yeah, I don't, I'm not really tempted for a lot of those things anymore that are kind of sitting around or hanging around. I have a lot better habits in place. And this process also made me a lot more confident in my nutrition, in the vegan choices and the lifestyle. And that was something that I was looking for as well, having that community
Hmm.
support. Like I said, kind of, fairly new, committed, and knowing that I wanted to have a whole food, plant-based diet and lifestyle. But yeah, it can be a little bit tough out there when you're transitioning, or not everybody in my family was adopting the same lifestyle. And so that's also one of the benefits of this program as well, is to have the Fit Vegan tribe and that community support around you to be, as you're making that transition, or wherever you are in that journey, right? And kind of reinforcing that.
Yeah, the transitional phase is a little bit harder as an individual, but also as you're changing how you're eating, and eating is such a social thing, especially for when you have a family. So um, I definitely like to dive into that a bit more. But before I get to that, I'm curious as to what brought you to be to the place of like, I need to transform. I need to do this. Like, what got you to like, I want to get started?
Yeah. I think for me, I was also in a place where I felt like I had had a lot of personal success in other areas of my life. And this was something that I felt like I was still kind of just I felt like I didn't have it quite dialed in. Like I said, I was kind of transitioning to vegan diet and lifestyle and cooking and meal prep and everything that goes along with that, and questioning kind of with the nutrition. And there's a lot of different information out there, and wanting to make sure that I kind of
Mhm.
understood that, what would be the best way to make that something that was, practical and sustainable too. That's obviously important. So I felt like I needed some more education about that. And so I got that in this program. And it also motivated me to get a plant nutrition certificate. So to also, pursue that education as well. But yeah, I tried different diets. I was fairly active. I've, dabbled in different types of exercise. And at the point that I joined, I mean, I was, in a hot yoga studio like 6 days a week, sweating and burning, doing cardio, and still feeling like, and that's great. And I have a lot of benefits from that. And that's something that I still enjoy. But in fact, now I enjoy those activities better, not looking at it as a tool or a method for body recomposition or to lose weight. And so it's actually, I think, healthier and better in that respect. But I kind of felt like, I was doing different things, and I still wasn't seeing the results that I wanted. As I'm, aging, and I kind of felt like I was, I joked in some of our calls in the program, but I was lacking a little confidence and feeling like, I wanted to get my mojo back a little bit, if you will. And so, I thought, you know what, I'm going to do this for myself. I'm going to invest in this. This is something that's important to me, something that I value. And I felt like, and why not now, too? There's, like you said, there's no perfect time. And I decided to, in some ways take a little leap of faith and, do it. And I'd been following you in the program for a while, and I was really impressed, through the process of deciding to enroll in the program, and then what I saw is the real structure behind it, and how it really helped me just really develop and hardwire the habits that were needed to make it possible. And then, of course, seeing the body recomposition results just continues to motivate me. So,
Yeah, well, honestly, you came in really motivated and disciplined, right? Like you mentioned, you already had some of these habits of being physically active. I think changing the format of the exercise and the structure of the nutrition is what made the big difference. But you're already in the habit of performing these activities, right? For the most part. And so I'm curious, out of everything that we kind of modified and changed when you came into the program, what have you noticed that were the things that made the biggest difference for you from what you were doing before and trying to shift your body composition to now?
sure. Let's see. There were a lot of things. I mean, I think I gained a lot of new awareness and focus on some of the real important things. So I've got several of them. One was my water intake. So I knew water's healthy and drank water, but I just think I wanted to really hardwire that habit. So, drinking water first thing in the morning, always keeping the water with me, just kind of being more consciously aware and going out of my way to make sure that, hey, I'm consistently getting that water in at all times. And we mentioned work or other things earlier. I could see how there was times when maybe that took a back seat or I wasn't making the time for that. So that was definitely important. Sleep. Huge. I always felt like I slept pretty good and did that, but I loved getting the Aura Ring and using the app, and I continue to be a user of that, and that information is fantastic. So it really made me kind of focus in on and really look at my sleeping habits, the quality of my sleep, and, it kind of reinforced those times when I knew when that wasn't ideal, how it affect my readiness for the next day or my ability to then, feel like I could be up to being as active as I wanted to be, and how that also influenced, right, our dietary changes, our emotions, etc. So I've seen a really big benefit of that. And then for me, also huge was, the nutrition education and the emphasis on protein. So that was huge. And that was something that I had concerns about whether or not I was, consuming enough plant protein, and how was I doing that, incorporating that in and having that awareness of What were the best sources for that? How could I easily integrate that? And I found that that's still something I do, making sure that with each of my meals, right, I'm getting enough protein in. And I really look at it as, fueling my body, making sure that I'm fueling it right so that I'm going to have the energy and the stamina to do the things that I want to do, and also kind of rev up. We talked about that, rev up my metabolic rate, because I felt like I was, kind
Yeah.
of, I don't think that engine was quite burning as much as it needed to. So I definitely saw
Yeah.
that. I incorporated part of that was some protein smoothies. So that's great. So I incorporated that, especially in the afternoon. And for me, that was kind of a game changer as well, because I kind of identified that as a time in the day, or making sure that I had that. And that was great and sustained me. And then that, kind of kept me satisfied until dinner time, so that I wasn't snacking as I'm making dinner, kind of, rush to maybe get something for dinner. So I found that that was kind of a game changer, those frequent kind of meals. And I don't know if that also has to do with kind of blood sugar stability, but for me, I felt like that was a game changer as well. So I talked about the meals and nutrition, and then of course the strength training. And I
Yeah.
had done some strength training before, like in the past years back. So I had some experience with it, but again, I was kind of following a book, just kind of going with a girlfriend, doing that. And it wasn't something that I, kind of kept along long term. I tried other, exercises and did lots of things. So it was kind of going back to that. And it started slow. At first it was kind of a little bit awkward, and I started off going to the gym. And as a result of the program, I ended up converting some loft space that we have into basically a home gym now. That is something that the whole family benefits from. And I've got no excuses to get in and get that workout done. And I've got all the equipment I need, and it's been fantastic. And it's very doable, 3 days a week
Hmm.
at doing this, doing the strength training, and I can still go and do the other stuff too. But, I can fit those into my days and weeks, and not feel like every day I'm kind of not assaulting my body, but, not even giving it that recovery. So, the other things like the meditation and the reading, I do that on a regular basis. So it's just kind of reinforced that. The cold showers and the exposure to cold, still work on that. I still, that's something that I still find myself sometimes a little bit hesitant about.
Hmm.
But I'm more aware that, okay, how can I do this? How does this also help, right, with my metabolism and for the health? And so I'm finding myself more open to the opportunities, or saying, maybe I don't have to bundle up as much, right? It's kind of like, give yourself that exposure, let your body do what it needs to do. So, yeah, I hope that I know that was kind of a lengthy
It,
explanation, but there's been so
no, that
many
was perfect.
great things. And the steps. How did I forget the steps? I stayed active, but there were days when I had to check myself, like I was not as active with my steps. And now it's just something that I'm pretty cognizant of. I can get those 10,000 steps in. And then sometimes that meant an extra, taking the dog for a little extra long walk, or when I knew there were days that I wasn't going to be as active. For instance, that day that I travel to and fro to my son's house a couple hours away and spend the whole day, that's kind of a long day in a car. And so I just, in between time, make a point to, I'm up and down more. I'm taking, my grandson for walks, which is a lot of fun. But how do I get my steps in on days when, it might not lend itself to getting around so much? So, all of those things, and when I first started the program, I can't say that I was doing all those things right away on week one. But the great thing is, you've got the app, you've got the reminders of the things that you need to do. And, you just start hardwiring those habits, making them easy, attaching them to other things. And before you know it, like I said, you have all these cumulative things that are working together to your advantage, to not only, give you these great results, but, they've had impacts in my life in other ways too. And they will for other people, right? As far as your organization. And even if I was already, maybe kind of inclined to do that, it's made me even more aware of how am I spending my days, what kind of routines that I have, what are the things that I'm doing to basically set myself up for success.
Beautiful. So basically, everything you listed is like the 7 daily habits you have on your app. So it's perfect. I'm happy that
They are,
they
yeah.
were useful.
They are all
Um,
useful.
so one thing about the cold exposure is it helps activate brown fat tissue in the body, which helps you burn a bit more calories. So that's like an added bonus to the mental resilience, to moving the lymphatic system. It actually helps you burn more fat because it activates brown fat tissue. Um, So you mentioned that these things have helped you improve other areas. I'm curious how that translated into like family time, relationship, career. Like, has that had a positive impact? Has it stayed neutral? Has it gone downwards? Because I'm a big believer that it's the foundation to a great life once you can master your body and your health. And so I'm curious as to how that translated for you.
Um, yeah, absolutely. I mean, just as I was going through this transformation, I imagine, the people around me kind of were too. And it starts with maybe a little bit of uncertainty, or there was a little bit of like, oh, is this just something new? Is this just something new that she's doing, or what's going on? But I think, what came out of it is I demonstrated like, no, this was important to me. This was a priority. These are just the things that I need to do. And I kind of approach that mindset. And I think when you do, other people around you, including my family, they follow. And I just, in terms, especially, I think, the biggest impact to them was probably around the nutrition and mealtime and kind of organizing my house around this, the vegan stuff. And not, my husband is not 100% vegan. My daughter isn't. But over time, their dietary choices have changed a lot. But at first, I had to kind of have a little bit of that line in the sand. We had conversations along the way. And now they both eat a lot more plant-based meal. There's certain things that are just not in my house, and they just got used to if they wanted to eat it, it's kind of like you can, but I didn't prepare it. And so as a result, if I prepare food, I mean, they don't mind eating food that's prepared. So a lot of times they'll eat what I have to be prepared or what I've prepared. So that was a big change. And then, seeing me do, the meal prep and the chopping and just being consistent, like, no, that's what I'm going to eat. When we go out of town, that also meant some special preparation or planning around that, or where we're going to eat or what we're going to do. But now it feels like it's just a part of, for me, it's a part of who I am and what I do. So I think it's all been integrated, but, it's a journey. And I had to recognize too that, I was excited about it. I was doing it, and I started to go more the sort of like lead by example. I wasn't
Yeah.
always vegan as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that I've learned. So I was like, hey, did you know about this? Or sometimes it would be sending my husband, some of Dr. Greger's little videos like, have you thought about eggs? Things like that, approaching it from a different place. And
Yeah.
sometimes saying, that's okay that you're going to have that. I'm going to do this. And, sometimes it also meant that, they'd have a better awareness of stuff. Even with my friends or workplace that, things kind of changed and morphed. We'd go out to eat or go places and they know that I'd be having something vegan. And now we have some great places that we go to where it's like, oh, great. We know they've got these vegan dishes and they'll have that too, and at the workplace as well, even that everybody kind of, knows that I work with. And sometimes people will ask me about stuff or how to prepare things or tell me about places, and it's become a good thing, but it is definitely, definitely a journey. But I think it ultimately, always starts with us as individuals, right? And kind of, making that commitment to yourselves. You make that commitment to yourself, you have integrity to yourself, the rest will follow. I mean, that's truly what it is. And basically you put that into practice, and then either people will respect that and go along with you. And, fortunately I wasn't in a situation where people didn't, and, but,
Hmm.
I suppose decisions have to be made, but yeah, there are certain things that I don't, have or do or indulge in, or, other times where it was like, no, I'm going to get my workout in, so that's what I'm going to do. You guys are sitting on the couch or doing this or that, but it's like, no, I'm getting my workout. And I think I've seen it also motivate and influence people too, where they're like, wow, okay. Like, my husband
Yeah.
uses the home gym now. And yeah, so there's been a lot of positive things with that too, but I don't want to minimize what I know, are some internal changes that have to be made for us all when we kind of make that decision, right? To commit. And one of the great things about the program, the Fit Vegan Tribe, is that, sometimes even when you kind of need that reinforcement, it's great to hear that from others, or join the group
Hmm.
calls and talking about, the consistency compounding and, things like that. So I found like I also made a point to participate in those because I thought, okay, I need to kind of keep fueling this for myself. And, eventually I could become one of those people too, I suppose.
Well, you are, and you
Yeah.
have, right? Like you mentioned a lot of good things in there. Like first off, I want to say that's why I love working with women because you ladies have such a powerful impact in your household and the community that just men don't have from my experience. Like, and just I'm going to talk from my aspect and from what I've seen from partners in the program, men tend to be lazier to cook. And so if you come in and you help with preparing food, they're going to eat whatever's ready. And so therefore they're eating more plant-based, your kids are eating more plant-based, the people around you are eating more plant-based. So I love that. Um, and you talk about like the impact that you've had on the people around you. I genuinely believe everyone wants to become a better version of themselves, right? And then whether that is, procrastination, limiting belief, self-deprecation, whatever people have that is preventing them from doing that, but everyone aspires to that. And so when they find someone around them that is doing the thing and that is doing it consistently, that's very appealing to people and they're going to be attracted to you to want to do that. And so you're basically becoming a lighthouse in your community and in your family, right? And especially as parents, you want to lead by example for your kids. It's not necessary that you have to do it perfectly all the time. It's just that you have to do it consistently because people notice consistency over perfection all the time. And that has a greater impact of like, oh, we're watching TV and everyone's relaxing and mom's like, gotta do my workout right now, right? And you get up, even though like everyone's laying on the couch, you're feeling the same way they are, but you go and do it. And that's very impactful on the people that are close to you. So I'm proud of you for that because that's really challenging to do. I'm curious, was there any bumps in the roads, obstacles, things that have come up throughout your time with us that have derailed you, but that you were just like, I'm going to get back on track, which ultimately you did because you did complete the program. But I'm curious, like, was there any moments throughout it and how did you deal with them?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think okay, so I'll start off. So right at the beginning, part of the process is you have these weekly check-in meetings, and right at the beginning, I had to kind of like come to terms with my idea of kind of perfection, or hey, I'm expecting some results like right away. So, even though I had, taken time to kind of read, hey, this is what you do, this is how the process is, your video explains exactly, we're asked to like, hey, if you did everything on track, kind of rate yourself. And so, right away I rated that there was like a problem, and even though I was kind of like doing everything that was expected, and I was going into it with all of these like unrealistic expectations. And so I remember, initially my coach was like, well, wait a minute, you kind of need to think about your expectations. And I'll admit my initial reaction was like, how do you know, what expectations do I have? And and I had to just kind of sit with it for a minute and say, wait a minute, like this is absolutely right. I just started this. I haven't even like gotten into it. And I'm already kind of like, and so I said that to my coach. I'm like, thank you. And, right away. And that kind of helped with me having a good rapport with my coach as well, because it just was a great objective sounding board. Because I can see how when you go this alone, you can really be, your biggest barrier. So that was it for me right from the beginning. So that was one of them. So I had to kind of like level set right away. And then probably the other biggest barrier for me was I went into it with kind of these big expectations about a huge weight loss because of what I was attached to a number that I thought, less about kind of what I'd look like, but oh yes, this is the magic number that kind of like everything will be great and wonderful. I'm good at all these other things. I'm going to be perfect. This is going to seal the deal sort of a thing. Well,
Mhm.
you know, and then there was my body and going through all of this stuff. And so, as you mentioned, I did not have this huge weight loss. Oftentimes I got in the scale and, it was minimum or I was the same. At the same time, my body was completely transforming and I could not deny
Yeah.
that. And thank goodness we're taking the weekly photos because I could just see that every single week. And
Yeah.
I hope you don't share that first photo because the first one, just by the expression, you can tell I looked defeated. I was like, oh my God, I got to take this photo, deer in the headlights, and every week there and after, I was seeing those changes. I was, gaining confidence, but um, I had to accept and make friends with the scale and see it for what it was.
Mhm.
It's a valuable tool. It was a measurement, but I noticed how I would feel a certain way and then I'd step on the scale and all of a sudden feel a different way. And I had to ask myself, why? Have I
Yeah.
changed? Am I a different person? No, I'm the exact same person from 10 seconds ago when I got on off that scale. So I had to have a
Yeah.
better relationship with that. And so for me, that was a big one as well. And I'm very happy where I'm at. And I think with the tools I have now, sure, I have I know what I need to do if I want to bring down the calories a little bit or change things up. I kind of have a sense now, like I know what is possible. Before it felt like it was kind of, I don't know, a little bit luminous, like I just couldn't kind of figure it out. But now I can. Um, and
Mhm.
it just doesn't have the same hold on me that it did before. So I know for a lot of people that could be the case, especially a lot of women. Um, and I had to say to myself too, like, I'm happily, at a certain age and stage in my life, and it's wonderful, but I don't need to try to be something that I'm not. And so I would say those were the biggest things for me. I didn't find myself kind of falling off of the program too much. It had the structure, and I generally followed that. But I think for me, those were kinds of the things and they could have easily derailed me. I mean, I could have easily said during part of the program, you know what, this isn't working. I'm not getting I'm not seeing the number where I want it to be. I'm not going to do
Mhm.
this anymore. But I didn't. I trust the process. I listened to the coaches. I couldn't deny the results that I was having as well. Um,
Mhm.
and so, yeah, that was probably some of those big mind shift changes. And I didn't go into it thinking that I needed mind shift changes, right? I was very
Yeah.
practical. This is what I want, kind of going. But I had to, through the process, it unveiled to me this other area that I had to grow in.
Mhm. I appreciate you sharing that because 90% of the transformation is mindset. 5% training, 5% nutrition, to be honest, because you mentioned there wasn't a lot of derailing from a nutrition and training standpoint, but that would just be like the physical result of derailing mentally, right? A lot of the things that will derail you from a nutrition and training standpoint originate from the mental, right? It's not like I'm at the restaurant and there's literally no healthy food available, as you're consciously choosing to not order the right thing, right? It's not like you can't work out because someone's restraining you. It's like you're choosing not to do a home workout or go to the gym. And you're right, like that self perception, managing expectation, those are huge things that people, when they start a transformation, there is expectation of like everything's going to melt away right away. It's like starting a business and expecting to make millions in the first week. Like it just doesn't work that way, right? There's time and process, and you have to pay your dues and build momentum, and right. And like you're right, like your photos look incredible. I get for a 1 pound difference. I'm very excited to share your transformation photos. Like for a 1 pound difference, it's crazy how different your body looks. And so I'm happy that you were coachable and took on these mindset changes that needed to take place, because you're right, like that could have easily derailed you, and that's what derails a lot of people, is the expectation of like everything is going to happen perfectly and smoothly, and I'm just going to drop all the weight. Everybody's different. Everyone reacts differently, right? There's common threads, but everyone's in a different position, gut health, energy wise, previous experience with dieting, and there's so much that goes into it. And so I'm proud of you for again, being coachable and just taking it on and being like, wow, this is an area that I need to work on, and which allowed you to ultimately finish.
Yeah, and I love what you say about the comparison as well. Because again, I was also comparing myself with some kind of idyllic sort of like number or idea that, okay, if I hit that, um,
Hmm.
and yeah, and I can see how that can happen too, because everybody's in a different place and space and different situation. And so there were also times when, yeah, you'd hear about people, losing quite a bit of weight. Yeah, and you're excited for them, you're happy for them. This is huge, and you know everything that goes into that. Yeah, and there were times you kind of sit there like, okay, well, I'm not having that same uh, maybe experience, but I'm having my own experience. I was having my own shifts. I was having my own, all these incremental changes that were kind of happening and synergistically kind of compounding.
Hmm.
Consistency compounds coming together. So what that looks like for everybody is going to be different. And so, that's one of the great things about having the individualized coaching. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I want to say something to the comparison point. Um, as that you're all running your own race, right? And if you look at someone when they share their win of like, I've lost 20 pounds, I know everyone's story in the program, right? So you're coming in, you're eating like healthy food, your calories were reasonable, you weren't severely under eating, you weren't severely overeating, you're already physically active. So you already had your body had a work capacity that was higher than most people, right? And so if someone else comes in the program and they are severely binge eating and overeating and not exercising, as soon as I cut soda and I get them to walk, they'll drop 20 pounds. Right. So it's hard to like be like, oh, but this person lost 20 pounds. I'm like, yeah, but they were also severely overeating and not exercising. Right. Which like everyone's on their own journey from where they're starting. And so that's why the comparison game is tough, because I'm like, they just, you started in different places. Right. And Jane, some people come in the program and they're eating 900 calories. And I'm like, hey, like we can't do a fat loss right now. We have to reverse diet for 3 months, right? It's not healthy for us to keep you there or go lower. And so for those people, it's the same thing. It's like, I'm putting on 2 pounds and then everyone's losing weight around me. Like, what's happening? So it is mentally challenging to transform, but everyone's is literally on their own unique journey. I like what you shared about the Oura ring and the scale, right? So I'm going to tie it to the Oura ring. You say you wake up, you feel a certain way, right? Like you wake up in the morning, you're like, my body's feeling tight, I'm feeling strong, like it's good. And then you step on the scale and the number doesn't reflect how you feel. And then your brain automatically goes to like, oh, maybe I feel like shit today because the number on the scale is not reflective of what I was expecting. And I find that happens with Oura rings and trackers as well. You wake up and you're like, I feel good today. Like I slept well. And then you look at your number and it says 50% recovered. You're like, am I feeling good today? Like you start to question how you feel. So being able to distance yourself from the data is something that's really important. And I think it just comes from like constant exposure to it. Because if you run away from it, then you give it that much more power. Where if it says something, you're like, this is how I feel versus how you actually feel. There's like an intuitive part to it.
Yes.
How did you
Yes.
overcome that throughout the process?
Um, yeah, I definitely, I can relate and know what you mean. I mean, at the same time, there was some information that was good. I did learn a little bit about,
Hmm.
it did tune me in a little bit into the heart rate variability, the resting heart rate, things that I could tell with depending on my level of activity later on in the day or certain things. And then there were certain times where I necessarily couldn't explain some stuff, but it did kind of give me some information sometimes to kind of make me aware or conscious of things that I could do to just ensure that at night I was getting as much quality recovery as possible. Um,
Hmm.
but yes, I mean, I think like you said, the continuous exposure, just being aware of it. And the great thing is after a while, I could get to the point where it was like, oh yeah, I'm not even really checking the information. It's like,
Yeah.
sometimes just be like, just make sure that I got everything in for the day. But I found myself less sort of like, okay, that's going to dictate, what I do because I was already right either doing those things or taking action when needed. And there were some times where simply, that was the day that I needed to get the workout in or whatever it might be, outside of that. But yeah, I had to, basically make friends and accept and, see these tools as something they are, which is tools, the scale as well.
Hmm.
It's a tool. It measures, it gives me some data. It can be helpful information. But again, making that distinction between here's the tool and the data versus, here's how I feel. And more importantly, how I feel about myself, and kind of being able to
Hmm.
do that internal check in and work if needed. And it made me in tune to listen to my body. There were some times where it was like if I was kind of, sore or I did a heavy workout the day before, I'd wake up the next morning. You can feel when you almost feel a little bit heavier, and it was like, well, it makes
Yeah.
sense. And I get, and so I was like, why am I like questioning this so much, So it just made me more kind of in tune to listen to your body. If you need a nap, if you need to rest, if you're feeling great, go for it. Take that do that extra activity or whatever. So I think I also, along with that, gained a respect for, hey, here's my body. I need it, being in tune with it, listening to it, respecting it. Yeah. And part of that respecting it and being in tune with it was let me give it the fuel that it needs. Let me make sure that I'm getting in that good nutrition on a regular basis. It's getting plenty of water, I'm making sure that I'm exercising and keeping myself active. So finding ways to incorporate those also good activities into saying, this is part of self-care. It's all part of self-care too.
Absolutely. Um, so I'd like to ask you this. I ask everyone, every member on the call, if there's someone that is listening to the podcast that is in the exact same position that you were in before and is maybe dealing with some of the same, you know, the self perception, expectation of the things that tend to be potentially maybe limiting them to taking action towards improving themselves, and someone that's on the edge of taking action, of committing, not necessarily with us, but just for themselves to start working out, to start changing their nutrition. What is something that you would share with them now, you being on the flip side and being a fit vegan success story?
Yeah, absolutely. What I would say to people is, I mean, it all starts with you, and you are worth the investment in yourself. There's so many other, ways that you can, invest your time, your energy, and resources. But the most valuable thing you can do is to invest in yourself. And that goes a long way because, as you mentioned, that has a ripple effect on yourself and everybody around you. So, all the things that potentially might be keeping you from taking that leap of faith, from wondering, can I do this? What is it all about? Is it possible? It's doable and possible. I'm here to tell you there's no, you don't have to have any magic powers. Okay. This is very doable. It's within your reach. It's within your reach. It's very much possible. You're going to have all the support that you need for you on your own journey. And, you don't have anything to lose except to, except for you to see what a better version of yourself can be. That it's possible, that it's there. And so, I would encourage anybody to just go ahead and, invest in yourself. There's not going to be a better time, a more ideal time. And these are really things that you can incorporate. They're very practical, sustainable, useful. Like I said, I am continuing to apply all of the things that I learned within the program. And I feel like there's no, this is something about a permanent lifestyle change, so it's not a gimmick. It's not a fad. It's, it does take time. It's going to take a commitment, mainly a commitment to yourself. And if you're willing to commit to yourself, do some work, and you're worth the work. You can do work. If you thought about the things, anything that you've been successful in and done, it did require a little bit of work on your part. So there's a little bit of work involved, but like I said, it's all very doable. But it's so worth it. And let me tell you, your body recomposition photos will convince you. It's wonderful. I have the confidence that I was looking for. I have the knowledge that I need. I have the tools and the habits hardwired. I've got the mojo back. I'm feeling good, and sky's the limit. So If that doesn't convince you, go for it.
Yeah, or Trina's photo will convince you. I would a major shift in body composition. Trina, I want to say a massive thank you for taking the time to jump and record a podcast with me, for sharing your story, for being so open, and yeah, just for sharing how you've been able to transform. And hopefully, it was valuable for people listening. And I just want to say that I'm really proud of you because, as you saw, transformation is not easy. It makes it easier with guidance and proper structure. And I'm very excited for you to move forward and to continue to implement these things for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.